For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
Hey, Craig, what do you want in your coffee today? I'm feeling like a little hot coffee. Even though it's spring, I want a hot coffee, a little extra cream in there.
No, I'm all about the iced coffee, and I'm all about the mocha swirl tonight.
Yeah. You know this. Yep. The way this whole donut shop is shaped, it kind of reminds me of some of the terrain you had on your table the other day that you got from. Wait, is that Andrzej in the corner over there?
I believe it is.
Hey, Andrzej, how are you? What brings you to
quite good? How are you?
Excellent. What brings you to Dunkin' Donuts here this fine day, straight out of Poland?
Well, I was told that we are to discuss a certain movie that we have all seen lately. So,
excellent.
I think that's a good venue to do that.
We should definitely talk about Guardians of the Galaxy.
It is a good venue.
But so, Andrzej, can I buy you a donut? What is your favorite donut? You know, what donut do you really like to go get?
Well, the basic one. I mean, will do fine. Yeah.
Okay, just a basic donut and a little. Do you like coffee?
Glazed.
Coffee or tea? What do you prefer?
Coffee black.
Coffee black. See, there we go.
Easy.
None
Easy
of this English stuff. You know, this is the real deal. I like it. Excellent. So we've all seen now. All three of us have now seen the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, right, Craig? You've seen it. Craig, how many times have you seen this movie now?
As of yesterday, Russ, I have seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So you are...
That's excessive. I will admit it's a bit excessive.
So that would qualify you. Now, how many formats? How many different formats have you seen?
I have seen all basic formats at this point. I saw it opening night, actually opening afternoon for me, in IMAX 3D. And then I saw it in regular format, and then I saw it in regular format again, and then I saw it in non-IMAX 3D.
Wow, so you've seen it all the way.
Yeah, the only thing I haven't done is IMAX non-3D.
Okay, fair enough.
Which I should probably look that up just so I could get that super hat trick. And I have to say, Russ, as I told you last night, I am not a big fan of 3D. Mm-hmm. Never have been. Might not ever be, but this movie, and it could just be because I love the movie, I'll admit right off the bat, but I thought they did the 3D great, and the IMAX 3D was the first time in a very long time that I've gone to an IMAX 3D, and I thought, yep, I wasn't dizzy, I wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was getting shoved in my face, no pun intended. I just thought it was really done well. It was sort of subtle in some places, and then all of a sudden,
not so subtle.
What's that? Well, when a big red arrow comes flying out at you,
right.
No. So I think they did a great job.
And Andrzej, how many times have you seen the movie?
Well, only once at this point, but it doesn't mean I'm less enthusiastic about it.
Yes, I'm with you. I've only seen it once also, but it doesn't mean we are not passionate about this movie, right?
Yes, I'm not going to judge either of you just because you couldn't be bothered.
That's right. And now one other thing we should say before we get too much farther is that we will. There's no way to really talk. Well, there is ways to talk about this movie, but
we're not going to do it. We are spoiling the heck out of this.
Spoilers are coming. So if you have not seen the film or you'd rather not have it spoiled, stop now, go watch the movie, and then after you have come back and listen to this Lost Chapter, and you can go along with us and see if you agree with us on what we thought. So, Andrzej, what was your expectations going into this thing? Were you like a huge fan of the first one, couldn't wait to see the second one? Were you kind of going in middling? What was your expectation level here going into this?
Well, actually, I went in with mixed expectations. I mean, I loved the first one. It was probably one of the best Marvel movies and best superhero movies, actually, that I have seen ever. But on the other hand, I felt that the whole MCU deal was getting a bit stale lately. I mean, I was a bit disappointed with Age of Ultron and pretty much everyone, maybe except Ant-Man, after that. I mean, Doctor Strange for me felt like, putting the first Iron Man in some scenery from Inception. So it was really disappointing one. And then came the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and I think it's the best Marvel movie I have seen yet. It really blew me away. It's great.
Nice. So you think it exceeded the first one? You say it's better even than the first Guardians?
Yeah, I mean, it's really different. The first one was, loud and colorful with a lot of great action sequences. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to the second one, it's much more, how to say that? It's a bit smaller, a bit intimate, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that the fact that it opens with a scene where, there is the action sequence, but somewhere in the back, and it's all blurred out.
Right.
And and the focus is on the dancing baby Groot. I mean, right. That's actually the scene that shows quite well what's going on with this movie. That it's, there will be a lot of, smaller, intimate stuff about the relationships between the characters, and the whole action thing is just, it's there, but it's not what's the most important here.
Right.
I think that's very insightful, Andrzej. I thought, I having seen it 4 times, I was able to enjoy the little baby Groot stuff at the beginning a couple times, and then the last couple times I saw the movie, I kind of focused, and that is a fully realized battle scene going on in the background. It's sort of crazy when you think about the fact that the shots are amazing, the action, the choreography is amazing, the creature is intense, and of course later on in the battle scene, once the sound equipment gets destroyed, you get the full standard action movie battle scene that you would expect. But before then, you get this grand scope of the battle as they're flying around on their jetpacks, and they're like using a variety of different missile weapons against the creature. I just thought that was great, and I love the fact that Baby Groot is constantly trying to beat people up.
Yeah,
like kicking and whipping and just like it's just one aspect of his personality that I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. Well, one of the things that I thought was so great about that intro was one of my favorite intros to any movie is the first Guardians, right? So when that movie opens and Star-Lord's walking through that sort of that abandoned or that planet,
ruins,
and all of a sudden the music starts playing, and he's like, and he grabs he's dancing to the music, and all of a sudden you realize the music's in his head, and he's like grabbing space lizards and singing into them like they're microphones, meanwhile fighting bad guys. That it immediately right out of the bat just sets the tone. And then the second movie did a great job with me because it opens. So I had said this great visual opening, and I don't even know how many times I've seen the first Guardians now because I own it. I watch it all the time. And so when the second one started, I was expecting this real pow opening, but it actually opens very calmly, right, on the scene with his dad and mom, kind of having their little car experience. And you're like, well, this is a lot more mellow. But then it goes to the scene you just described, and it's almost like, oh, here it is. And it sets the tone again for like, this is the kind of movie it's going to be. And I just really loved, it was almost like they did a little bait and switch, like, yep, this time we're going to go back to make it not the movie you expected. Oh, just kidding. We're still the crazy, wacky folks. It's really, I thought it was a really, really cleverly done opening. And I just really, I'm with you guys. It really set the tone for the whole film in a very good way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Andrzej, you went in kind of thinking, I'm not sure. And so it lived up to your expectations. It exceeded them. You really thought it really, and you obviously think it's one of the best comic book movies ever. So you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it really exceeded the expectations. It was, like I said, probably the best Marvel movie I have seen up to date, and I have seen them all, maybe except the first Hulk. So yeah, that's
okay.
And Craig, would you say it's the same? I mean, how did it live up to your? So I was a little different because you had seen it early. I didn't get the chance to see it till a week after it came out.
Right.
And so you had tweeted something to the effect of, Craig, you had tweeted something like, the 2 problems of this movie is 1, I can never see it again for the first time, and 2, there won't be a movie this good for a long time. And so that sort of set the tone for me. Like, and everybody was, and I was trying to avoid any kind of, I just didn't want any spoilers. Yeah. But you got the general census from from everybody who got and saw it the first weekend, like, oh my God, it's great, it blows everything away, So I was getting nervous because I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to go in with like the super high this expectation the movie can't possibly meet. And so I went with my family and my brother's family, and we're all going down there. We're all super hyped. And what I thought was really amazing about it was we all left just as hyped, like even more so, like it nailed it, which is really hard for it's really hard for a movie because you imagine how good it's going to be.
It was totally set up to fail.
It was, right. And it didn't. Yeah. That's, I think, what's really most amazing about it.
I mean, I can't even I can't even explain my connection to the first movie and now the second movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I feel so connected to them. I don't know what resonates with me so deeply, but I love them to the point where I would say they're some of my favorite movies of all time. And I make no excuses for that. I'm not like, but they're just, I'm not going to defend them. I just love them. And so I was terrified going into that. I wanted to see it before anybody had a chance to spoil anything for me beyond what had already been spoiled, because I think they did make I wish they had not used quite so much footage in the previews.
I didn't watch the previews. I avoided them intentionally.
Yeah, see, that was that I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
Because whole comic sections of the movie are in the previews.
Right.
And I wish they hadn't done that. Now, the interesting thing, they did an awesome job of completely hiding what the actual plot of the movie was.
Mm-hmm.
So going into it, even having seen, like I said, I'm a giant fanboy. I'm unapologetic. I loved it. I looked for everything I could find, which I shouldn't have done, but I did. And I had no idea who the bad guy was going to be. You had no idea. You knew these scenes were there. You knew they were going to be funny. You had no idea the context of them. You didn't know if it was the beginning of the movie or the end of the movie. And there was all kinds of speculation, like, why are these people acting in this way? Who are these people over here? That not having any connection with the comic book world, I had no idea what those conversations were even about. But I went in knowing, okay, so there's going to be a scene about a button, and that's going to be really funny in the tape. And then when the movie, like, you're like, oh my God, that's exactly the scene almost that you saw. But at the same time, it like worked in within the scene so well that I was like, okay, I wish I was seeing this for the first time, but it is still really funny and I still really enjoy it. So I went in terrified that it wasn't going to live up to my expectations, and not even knowing how, like, I can't even explain to you what would have happened if the movie had sucked. So I went in like really nervous. I went in all by myself. I went to the IMAX 3D was the only one locally that doesn't, it's bizarre. Now every movie theater you have to reserve your seats, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least locally. And so you have to buy your tickets ahead of time. And I didn't buy my tickets until a few days before the opening. I don't know why. I didn't know what my schedule is going to be like. And so all of the good seats, like in the middle of the theaters, they were all taken in every theater in New Hampshire, basically. So the IMAX 3D still had seats available, and it's not reserved seating. So I knew, I'm only saying this because it's the last chapter, so it won't really get out there that much. I knew I could leave school early and get to the movie theater like an hour or two ahead of time, get in that big giant line that I anticipated, and get whatever seat I wanted is basically what happened. And then a big giant thing exploded, and Karen had a bunch of drama, and I ended up having to go home instead of straight to the movie theater, and I got everything I needed to get done. But I got to the movie theater much later than I anticipated, and there wasn't a huge line. So I ended up getting pretty much what I would call the sweet spot in the theater, like right in the middle, both like up and down and sideways. If you make an X, right there in that center seat. The theater was eventually full, but a bunch of people didn't show up as early as I thought they would. And that was so I had the perfect seat in the perfect position in the IMAX 3D. And then so I had the glasses on, and the previews came out, and I'm like, oh God, the previews are making me sick with the 3D IMAX. And like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, maybe this was a big mistake. And then, like I said, it was such a smooth transition into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with their 3D that I felt like the stuff they put in there, obviously to service the 3D aspect, still worked in the 2D to the point where it wasn't like egregious. And so, and it was so smooth. I didn't get sick. I wasn't like motion sick or anything like that. I just really enjoyed it, and it totally lived up to my expectations.
Awesome. So Andrzej, what'd you think of the overall story? Because they chose to make the story about a couple things that are pitfalls of a lot of sci-fi movies. One was the bad guy is a god. That's always trouble right there when the bad guy's a god. When your heroes are not a god. I mean, if it's Thor versus another god, okay, it's god on god action. Everybody's at the same plateau. Mm-hmm. But when you're fighting a god, you usually have a problem because now it's going to get all esoteric and weird. And the second thing that was interesting about the plot device of the movie was it was all about family. And it wasn't just about Star-Lord's family. It was about everybody's family. Like literally pretty much every hero character in the movie, with the exception of Drax pretty much because it was the last movie that was his family. Everybody else had a family arc in there. And that can be sort of sappy and overdone and not played well. But obviously we all liked it, so we think it did. But what parts of the movie really worked for you in terms of the overall plot and the villain and the sort of the story arcs of each of the characters? How did that play out for you, Andrew?
Well, I think that what you have mentioned right now, the focus on the family and the fact that there are a couple of these relationships that are somehow connected with each other, like. There's the real father of Starkiller, and then no, not Starkiller.
Star-Lord.
What did I say? Star-Lord. Jesus.
Peter Quill.
Sorry.
Right. Star-Lord.
Sorry, it's really late here. So
that's all right. No, it's fine.
It's okay.
It's okay.
You're winding down.
You've only seen it once. You're good. Three more times, you'll have it down. Right.
Just a little bit, and then there's the whole thing between him and Yondu. Mm-hmm. It's actually a really great plot. I mean, it's thematic. It's not only about blowing stuff up, and actually, in response to what Craig had said before, I mean, I don't like the fact that they gave out a lot of the jokes in the trailers, but on the other hand, I prefer it to be done that way than if they gave out the main twist and all the emotional stuff that happens in the second part of the movie. So there's that.
Yeah. What did you think, Craig, of the overall story arc? I mean, did it? Because I think when the other pitfall that was in here was you got a lot of characters being worked through and developed, and then they added even more, right? So they brought in a lot. I mean, everybody had something going on pretty much from the first movie, and then they brought in a few more they had to develop, including the villain and everything else. And so clearly we all think they did a good job, but what about it really appealed to you, Craig? What impressed you about it?
I have to say, sort of piggybacking on what Andrzej said, and what you said, Russ, the whole the intimate aspect of family, sort of tying the whole thing together, because when you get right down, the big bad guy is his father, right? Ooh, spoiler.
We said that already.
So right there is your, like, I mean, the thread of family is so deeply ingrained in the story, and you're right. Like, that's so many pitfalls in that. I mean, they have a game of catch, for God's sake, and that could have totally gone all sappy. In fact, it almost skirted that a little bit. But at the same time, it's a giant burning ball of planet energy, and it's like Father God and Baby God learning how. I mean, I thought it was great, and I love the way that the Sovereign were woven into that, because they don't have family, right? They have no concept of family. So it's all. In fact, they're mocking him at the beginning. For his concept of family. And so that as a through line is so well established that it's even brought sort of into the background as well with these secondary bad guys that are more of a device. I just thought I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was extremely well paced. I thought it brings the fact that, as you say, so many different characters got so much character development in the movie that you would think it might bog down, but it's the writing is so tight. Dan Abnett, by the way, has a writing credit in this movie.
Oh, nice.
And in the first one, and a listener pointed that out to me. And so much is done with just a couple words here or there, Or like Rocket's thread. Rocket's thread is awesome because you can probably tie it to 8 to 10 sentences through the entire movie, right? And it starts with the batteries, and the batteries basically trace his character arc. And then with his confrontation with Yondu on the bridge of the third quadrant, where like they come right together, and then Yondu just basically says, "You're me." I mean, you're like, oh God. I mean, I will tell you, I've seen it 4 times. I have cried 4 times. The last 20 minutes of this movie is some of the most emotionally affecting to me. And that might be, I don't know, if I wanted to dig too deep, maybe that's why I could figure out what in this whole all these shenanigans really like latches onto me. But that where it all comes together with the whole family concept, I just love it. And at the same time, the humor is still there. We're family. We don't leave anyone behind, except maybe you. It never takes itself so seriously that it can't then, spin everything on its head with just 1 or 2 lines, which I think is genius.
I think Yondu is particularly a great arc, and what's the group he was trying to be a part of, but then got kicked out of because he violated the rules? What's the name of their guys?
The Ravagers.
The Ravagers, right? So, like, even the Ravagers, everybody was either about family or fitting into their home, right? And that funeral, I mean, spoiler, that funeral scene at the end, so powerful, right? So powerful. And it's like, it was just that, and it's about like, I mean, talk about a secondary. I don't know how to describe Yondu because he's kind of certainly from the first movie, he's sort of a secondary.
Hey, he's a member of the Guardians of the frickin' Galaxy.
Yes,
man.
But the Guardians of the frickin' Galaxy is getting so big that it's like, But what's cool about it was like,
well, that's okay. He was only a member for about
15 minutes, right? But that's what's great about it, right? Like the whole thing, even like. Sylvester Stallone's character and everything being like, yeah, he's one of, and then he brings his group back. It's like everybody's finding their family at the end. Like even the guys you don't even know are finding family. Yep. It was just like, but it was like done in a way that it was like, yeah, we know it's over the top, but that's the way it should be in Guardians of the Galaxy. And you can't help but going, yeah, that's exactly right. It's just so good.
Well, it like my big thing is you establish a universe and then you have to work within the rules of that universe. And that's what they've done.
Yeah.
Right. In my opinion, I think they've done it extremely well.
So,
and as far as so the Ravagers, the cool thing about the Ravagers is like seeded again, same sort of the same sort of technique applied to a larger story arc rather than one particular character. You get the idea that the Ravagers were started by this one group.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Sylvester Stallone's character, whatever his name is,
something Hawk, Starhawk, something like that.
Starhawk, or like what do they? His comic book character was Starhawk.
Yeah.
We'll see how. Stakar Ogord is what IMDb has him as, and he's called Stakar. He's not ever called Starhawk in the movie. That they were like a group, not unlike the Guardians of the Galaxy, who were all worked together, and in fact. The flame that they wear, the flame patches, is the symbol of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comic books, I believe. And then they had this falling out, and they all kind of broke apart, and they all became their own captains of individual smaller fleets, just like Yondu did. And Yondu's death brings them back together, and they all come like that. That's one of the post-credit or credit scenes. We can discuss the terminology later if you want. Is them kind of coming back together. And there's a lot of speculation. Like, I mean, obviously they're not going to get their own movie, but are they going to be a big part of, the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie? And it's quite possible.
I bet they're part of the Infinity Stones story.
What's that?
I bet they're part of the Infinity Stones.
You think they're going to be part of the Infinity War?
They're setting it up. I mean, they're obviously setting that up. It's going to be interesting. Well, and that leads me to sort of one of the things I want to answer or ask you guys. And Andrzej, maybe I'd love to hear what you think. Is, Craig, you mentioned you got to build a universe and be consistent inside of it. Speaking of universes, there's also the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which this fits squarely in. They've been doing Infinity Stone stuff with this thing like every movie. If you read, I Google afterwards, like some of the shorts when they talk about the one lady there who has the army of basically video game pilots. Which, by the way, having actual 1980s video game sound effects for when the guys are remote drone piloting these things was brilliant. I mean, that was just awesome. But that thing in the end where they show sort of the sarcophagus with the whatever creature she's creating. So supposedly one of the Infinity Stones is in there powering that, according to comics, right?
Yeah,
so
there's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's only one Infinity Stone left undiscovered.
Unaccounted for, right?
Yeah, and Adam, the guy inside that sarcophagus, is connected with an Infinity Stone. So that's one of the theories.
So we're thinking that's the theory at the moment. So there's your thread though, right? That goes through. There's one with Odin, and there's they go all the way back through all the different Marvel movies. So you've got this opportunity to bring all these different heroes, some of which are on different planes, right? All together in some way. So they're setting that up, obviously, which is cool. But what do you guys think, Andrzej? How does this help the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Does it propel the overall plot? Does it feel like a side movie? How do you think it fits in?
Okay, maybe you go first, Craig.
Okay. I think that's an excellent question, because I don't know. Like I when you bring the Guardians of the Galaxy and all their sci-fi goodness down to earth with all the comic book goodness, I want to believe that because it's all got the same DNA that it's going to blend seamlessly, and it's going to be Civil War times 100, and it'll be just that much cooler because there's so many more characters. But I'm a little nervous as to, like, again, not coming from the comic book realm, but experiencing the movies. Has there been enough sci-fi in the Marvel Earth-based movies that the Earth-based characters are going to be able to kind of take it in stride or deal with it in a way that makes sense on the screen, but at the same time isn't like a huge drag on the story? And so I'm nervous. I will enjoy seeing Iron Man and Star-Lord on the same screen, undeniably. And so it's going to be worth the price of admission. That right there is going to be worth the price of admission. And I'm on record saying I thought I thought Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be a big flop outside of, the fan base. So I never expected to like it as much as I do or to be invested as much as I am. So I have a lot of faith in the guys and gals who are running the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I've kind of, I think I'm with Andrzej. Like, for instance, Doctor Strange kind of left me cold a little bit. I was like, okay, it's really cool, special effects and everything. The story itself wasn't really a draw for me. But other than that, like, I really like. I don't think there's been a movie that they've done since they left Hulk to his own devices and not to have his own movies anymore that I haven't really enjoyed. So I have faith in it, but I'm a little nervous.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Andrzej?
Well, actually, I'm mostly with Craig on this one. But I just can't tell at this point where this will go plot-wise. But I think that what we have discussed before, that it's a movie that's a bit different from what we are used to when it comes to MCU. I mean, it's like we said, it's a bit more intimate. It's about relationships and so on. And actually, it's really authorish, so to say. I mean, it's not some kind of run of the mill corporate movie like you seem to be watching a spreadsheet rather than a movie. No, there's a lot of spirit to it, and actually, I hope that there will be other MCU movies with certain directors being given chances to do like their thing with the material they are given, because MCU up to now was mostly about being consistent, building the universe and so on. And both the first Guardians and the second one now, these were a bit apart from that, and they actually worked out pretty well. And it would be good to see something that's not as much as about building the universe, but more about getting someone's vision about certain characters, about certain arcs out there. I would love to see, I don't know, a Spider-Man movie with Miles Morales, for example.
Yeah. I'm with both of you guys on this. I think the interesting thing is, and this may sound a little weird, but I actually think the Thor movies fit better with Guardians than some of the other MCU movies. And I think it's because they sort of feel like they're, Craig, you raised the point, like, can the technology and the power level, if you will, of like the Avengers sort of match? But I feel like where Thor fights and Thor works, he does. Also, Thor's feels a little more tongue-in-cheeky, kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy is, and I just can't wait. And I also, there was a great trailer for the next Thor movie in front of Guardians, and I just noticed myself feeling, it was literally like, I think the trailer right before Guardians, and I was like, boy, that's going to fit nice. I don't know why. It just felt like those feel like they're closer. And I loved Civil War and stuff, but they feel like a little different, and it is going to be interesting to see how they merge them together. But I do think like the style of Thor and the style of what they do there is, for some reason, I can't really put my finger on it. It feels closer to the style of Guardians. I don't.
Well, I think they've done a good job of like Thor, making Thor, like bringing out that whole aspect that he's an alien more than a god, sort of.
Yes.
An alien that, of course, has assumed the role of a god on Earth. But and so if you go in that direct, and then you've got all the spheres and all the different, you go to where's he come from?
Asgard,
thank you. And you've got all the other planets that are connected to Asgard. Right. So I think they've done a really good job of making that more of a, like, that could really have gone in the direction of fantasy, right? That could have been more of the fantasy side. But I think they've done a really good job of bringing that or into a science fantasy at the very least. I think it does, and Ragnarok, all the previews for that definitely make it look like more of a Guardians of the Galaxy fold in rather than a Captain America kind of thing. Well,
I also think too about the main story arc of the prior Thor films, and they've been about family also, right? Him and Loki, his brother, and how his relationship with his dad, and that whole how he fits and doesn't fit, and does he really fit at home, and so or on Earth, and so there's some parallels there that I think it makes it feel more like the same, same universe. So the Dunkin',
good point.
The Dunkin' Donuts guy has given us the evil eye, but before we go, I think each of us should pick our very favorite line from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Easy.
So Craig, why don't you go first? What's your favorite line?
My favorite line in the whole movie is got to be on the inside.
All right. Andrzej, what is your favorite line?
Well, obviously, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
That's my favorite line. You look like Mary Poppins. Is he cool? Hell yeah, he's cool. Mary Poppins, y'all. That's my favorite line in the whole movie. That is definitely that is a good one. Although, yes, Craig, Drax had some of the best lines. It's funny. I mean,
he was the comic relief. As you stated, his family stuff really came out in the first. Although I think the foundation is being laid for more family stuff for him later. But his family stuff was in the first. He's almost like the linchpin, right?
Yes.
He's the guy who's like, I don't think we should separate.
He keeps them together.
We can't leave without him. He's the guy who's really kind of the glue, and he's the comic relief because he's kind of like sit back, relax, and I've already done this family stuff. So, I mean, he's got some of the best lines.
My second favorite line, because I will give one since Andrzej technically said Mary Poppins. My second favorite one, and this is just because I have one in a drawer, was when Quill gets a Zune to replace his Walkman. That was awesome. That was so awesome. And I'm like thinking to myself,
it's what everybody on Earth is listening to today.
Right. So does Microsoft pay for product placement for a product that's dead? I mean, how does that exactly work? I just thought that was epic.
That was awesome.
So if for some reason
it's got 300 songs on it.
300 songs. Right. So awesome. Such a good film. I mean, so many ways, such a good movie. So
now, does that mean that the soundtrack for Volume 3 is going to have 300 songs? Because that wouldn't suck.
That would not suck. Andrzej, thank you so much for joining us here in Dunkin' Donuts. It was so good to see you and get a chance to chat with you about Guardians. And we're going to see you on the main show here in about a week, talking all about your amazing terrain business, as well as some other games we're playing and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Excellent. So we'll see you in a little bit.
And I think our patrons, if they want to do their homework to prepare for the next episode, should look at Multiverse Gaming online. The Multiverse Gaming website to look at some of that amazing terrain.
Caution,
Andrzej does.
Bring your wallet. You're going to want to buy things. Just saying.
Yeah, it cost me more money than I'm going to actually admit.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.